The cohort from Coalinga is going to talk a little bit about their very rapidly growing and exciting uh, use of the LibreText platform. So Heather, you can take it away.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Heather Evans, and I am the OER librarian for Coalinga College. We were recently awarded the 24-25 Exemplary Program by the Academic Senate of California Community Colleges for the rapid growth of our OER adoption here. Just a little bit about Coalinga College. We are on the west side of the Central Valley. The closest services are around 60 miles away in terms of if you were looking for a town. We're between Paso and Fresno. And we serve about 1,000 full-time equivalencies, or our enrollment is about 1,000 full-time equivalencies. So we're very small, but that has really helped us in terms of we have a very tight-knit community here. And we were able to, in the space of about a year and a half, go from 10% OER adoption rate among full-time faculty to 85% OER adoptions for full-time faculty. And one of the things that our community really values is academic freedom. We have a very robust description of it in our faculty contracts, and it's been near and dear to our hearts. And so I'm here with two of my faculty from the English department, Dr. Jill Bonds and Ms. Brandy Wilds, and both of them have helped. We've constructed OERs together using LibreTexts platform, and we'll get into a little bit of why that's the case. But we're just going to talk about how things have gone for us. And so I guess in terms of the way that I've approached it, I open education resources are an opportunity for radical freedom, like in the existentialist sense. I think that we are used to being restricted by the publishers in ways that have become so common that it doesn't even occur to us. The idea that we have to delay the start of addressing materials for students for a couple of weeks because we need time for them to be able to purchase the books, if they're going to purchase the books, that is limiting our ability to do what we know we need to do in the classroom because we can't provide this extra resource. We also end up, in order to avoid confusion with students, we may end up feeling required to present topics in the order that the book presents it, whatever book it is that we've adopted, as opposed to whatever way makes the most sense to us, the way that we find most best connects with our students. And and are we going to ask students to purchase extra books if we think that discussions in one book are better than discussions in another book? How many textbooks can we realistically expect our students to take on? And this is one of the ways that LibreText has really helped us in terms of giving us that that level of freedom of choice. We can really look at every book that is available. We can select the descriptions that are best. We can reorder the content to the way that makes the most sense to us. We can author and review we can author and revise for sections where we don't see things that are exactly meeting our needs. And our students have responded really well to it. Jill and Brandy both work together on the critical thinking book. And so I guess, Jill, if you'd like to talk a
Sure.
little bit about how that's gone with your class.
Yes, absolutely. Hi, welcome. So I'm Jill Bonds. I teach English and education courses. And you know, I think that the main thing that I have found that's worked with LibreText so beautifully is getting students what they need on the first day. Um, Especially, we have moved to a lot of 8-week short-term courses, and having students for 2 weeks trying to find the material, waiting for their financial aid, all of these obstacles has stopped because they're having access the first day. Otherwise, we're now on week 6 and counting down, and they're already behind on the material. So that's one of the reasons that I really, I started to think about moving this way as well. I started out working with Rachel on an education book. which she was here before. And so the education book turned out to, before was a very, very costly book for our students. The course is ran online because I get students up and down California that take the course. And so the course was designed really to help our students become successful educators. And one of the ways that we do that is having them do a lot of online discussions, and the events that were in the book with education continue to change. So that's one of the reasons I like it as well, as I can update the links to things that are more current and that are happening at this time. You have ownership of the material. After kind of understanding the process, we then went into English 3, which is the critical thinking book. We worked on that. The English department did as a group, which was great to get some different voices and opinions into, making sure that we're not only hitting all the core student learning outcomes and the goals, but also diversifying it for our diverse community. We have a very diverse community here. And so making a book that is made for those students, is really important. I want to make a note too that the Critical Thinking English 3 course was one of the components you could use was a very expensive online learning management system. And that courseware was difficult to attain for students. You had to have a credit card, which they were waiting again. And so we were able to stop all of that by creating our own book. I'm using the book right now for the first semester, and I have 5 sections of it. So I am very, diligently going through the material as well, and editing and revising, and it's an iterative process. But I think really the part about LibreTexts is knowing that you can change that material to best fit the needs of your students. And so I just love the fact that I can, add things and edit things that's going to make the most sense for my students. All my students look different. I teach 2 of the course offerings in dual enrollment. And some of the links were not working at their site because they have things blocked on their computer. So I'm having to revise for those sections and compare it to my online sections, and then my on-campus sections as well. And I have a special program, Puente, that I specifically use this for. And so I think it's really important that you remember as an author that you are in charge of that, and you can change it, which best, is the best fit for your students at the time, because it's going to continue to change. So I just like that it's a live document. I really like that. I always think of it as a live document that continues to be revised weekly, because of critical thinking, things are changing. Right now in the landscape of America, we're changing rapidly. And so I want to take those issues that students are hearing, for example, last night, and bringing those into the book. So I have to continue to work with the book on that. But really the best way to see if a book's going to work is to use it. That's the only way. It's you have to see what's working and what's not. Brandy, you want to share any ideas as well? I spoke a lot about it, so.
Sure. I mean, I think everything that you said, I don't have anything that I don't agree with. You're absolutely right. One of the best things that I appreciate about this process is we can tailor the books to our own personal courses. And that really helps, as Heather said, with the academic freedom, which really is, we don't have a huge department. We have 4 instructors basically, but we're all very different in how we approach the subjects. And so being able to work on a common book, but then fork it and make it our own has been just a blessing, because we can really feel like
Yes.
we can make the course ours, right? And another thing that I really appreciate about the LibreText, I ended up writing my own creative
Your
writing book.
Yeah, your creative writing book.
Yeah, because I was using an OER that was for creative writing, and it would change all the time. And so I'd be working on with a sort of an addition of the text, and then my students would be like, this assignment doesn't exist. What are we supposed to be reading? The page numbers aren't right. There's nothing to do on these pages. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, did this book change again? And then the link would be dead. And then the OER librarians would like have to be searching through like, I don't know where you guys search to find the link that would work.
Oh, I ended up digging around in somebody's personal Google Drive. It was a little
It was such a hot mess. It was a hot mess. And then anyway, so I'm like, hey, can I write my own? And it worked out really well because we were starting 8-week classes. So I could write the creative writing book for an 8-week class, then just really drill down to what do they have to know. And then another thing that was fabulous is that it really helped me not violate copyright laws by including short stories and poems that I wasn't allowed to use, even though I thought, hey, oh, this is Winnie the Pooh. Of course, he's been dead for a real long time. Like, okay. So, but it turns out that it got put back into copyright. And so I couldn't actually use that anymore. So that was sad. But, but it allowed me to find stories that I wasn't violating copyright laws, that I wouldn't have broken links, that my students would have a text that was always there and it was current and it wasn't going to change unless I changed it, which I love. And then, and especially in my English 1A section, we have used LibreText to develop an OER for 1A as well. And just to be able to pull like specific chapters and put them exactly where I want and sort of create my own book, even though I didn't write the book, but the content is there. I can put it in my LMS exactly where I need it to be for the students. And it makes it so much easier. And it's like, hey, we're going to talk about a web, and the book has a web and exactly the way I want it, and put it right there next to that module. It's a game changer, as opposed to like saying, hey, go open your textbooks, make sure you're reading pages, blah, diddy, blah, diddy, blah, diddy, blah. I can put the links right there with the module assignments, with the assignments in the module. So it's made it so much easier to get the content to the students.
Yeah. And so in terms of now being able to work with these, have you noticed a difference in how students respond to the material?
I think I definitely, well, first of all, they're reading it.
Yes. I was going to say, yes, they actually have access to it, because before they just wouldn't buy it. They just couldn't afford it, or they didn't know where to find it. So yeah, they're actually reading it. That's exactly, yes.
Yeah. And I just in terms of why cost is so important on our campus, I know that it happens in lots of other places, but we really are in, I think, the poorest region of California. We looked at a survey of surrounding of the towns that we serve, and the high school diploma holding for the residents was under 50% in all of them. And so earnings are not high. There is not a strong tradition of pursuing higher education and remaining. And so we're really trying to we're here to build the community to help them invest in themselves, to and together be able to create a fuller picture, like better opportunities that don't involve having to move to Seattle or move to the Bay Area, and the brain drain has been fairly significant. And so making sure that those sorts of opportunities are present here, where people live, where they want to stay with their families, is really, really huge for us. And so a lot of they didn't read the book, they didn't buy the book. It's because it's going to be the difference between whether or not they can get top ramen. And, and not as a luxury, but as like a basic, I need calories to keep going sort of thing. And
yeah, I think that's really important to the context of where we're at, and accessibility. A lot of our students also lack laptops and computers at home. So they are able to rely on their phones, and they can read the book on their smartphones. And that's where I'm seeing a lot of them use it. They have access to it wherever they're at. They don't have to go and find it. So it really plays a part in why they either are staying in a class, choosing a class, or finishing a class. I have heard students specifically drop a course because they can't afford the book or the program. And it's not that they don't want to spend the money on it; they don't have the money to spend on it, which is significantly different than I think in some regions and areas. It's really important that we keep, that equity piece as really the focus, at least for my classes. So students, at least just one barrier. If it's a small barrier like $100 book, at least that's going to help them a little bit. And just one roadblock less for them to have to, go to.
Yeah. And I was just thinking again with like Brandy's creative writing book, like Brandy, you had the chance to author the sections that were you felt like were going to be strongest in your own voice, while also being able to incorporate chapters from other books where you really liked how they covered a particular subject, and thought that they were going to do a better job. And the really being able to make those choices like page by page and section by section is really like embraces the full creativity of what education can be, I think.
Yeah, I'm currently trying to work on another LibreText. And one of the reasons that I really wanted to choose to create another book is for the diversity of the readings. The readings that are currently in our literature course textbook, for one thing, it's a very expensive book. And they continue to, it seems like annually, change the edition. So it just continues. The edition keeps getting changed, and then what they've been doing is then the chapters are changing, and so I'm having to redo assignments anyways based on the new edition, because I could tell the students to get the older edition, but then it automatically takes them to the newer edition. So there's all of those things, but particularly, the writings don't really interest my students, and I think it's important that we try to show them that they can have literature and they can read literature and write about literature that it encompasses who they are, their culture, what they like. And it doesn't have to be set in just one textbook. We can look elsewhere and we can see literature and everything that we do. And I can take a lot of the ideas that are already in LibreText and mix it to make it a little bit more diversified for my students. So I'm excited on this project.
Yeah. And I know that we're working primarily with English faculty right now. We were expecting our computer science instructor, but she had a last minute emergency. And I really only bring that up because I think that people don't always think about how broad the discipline range is in terms of what we can work with. Like we've got the geosciences, we've got biological sciences, there's physics, there's all levels of math. It's really helped with some of the projects that we've had to do that are sort of interdisciplinary, like humanities, or like an actual like humanities book where we're pulling some from history courses, and we're pulling some from English courses, and we're pulling some from art courses or music courses, and being able to stitch those together. Our faculty created the first physical science OER textbook in the state of California. It completed at the end of last summer, and that was a combination of physics and chemistry, and I believe there was also some geology. We had some faculty from several institutions, and different institutions define the scope of the physical science courses slightly differently, but we had to reach across multiple disciplines. And just being able to go through, find what we need, bring it in, edit it down, go back, look for more. And that helped shorten the amount of work that we need, the raw authoring that needed to be done to get this book ready for our students. When that course went live last fall, the instructor had been told that we at the library had copies for students, and we did not. We didn't know that the course was running. And so we found out with a student walking in and requesting to check a copy out. And it was a book that the publisher is no longer interested in supporting. And so it was only available like spiral bound, and it was going to cost as much for expedited shipping and printing as the book cost, like each book cost on its own. And and it still took weeks to get in, and that was weeks that the students didn't have access to the book. And so that is now absolutely not going to happen for that course. Like we could have our instructors are free to choose whatever book they want, but it's really helpful when I'm like, I mean, you could this is a starting point. This is where what do you want to do? What do you want to use? And ways to take ownership over the materials uh in to more fully reflect things. Um
Can I ask a question?
yeah, please.
So please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you guys are probably on track to be the first community college in the state to be fully OER.
Yeah.
Okay. And that right there is obviously facilitated by the size, and you're more nimble in order to handle that. But can you comment on and I pasted into the chat your campus commons that shows what was created. A year ago, there was no campus commons, or even 9 months ago. So what's on that list is actually exceedingly impressive. And that's the question that I can imagine many people wanting to know is why and how do you replicate that?
So one of the things that we do is really like I'm a facilitator. I have a student worker or several student workers, and we are there as support staff for faculty, but faculty are really the subject matter experts. And so I am not doing one book at a time. I am supporting 5 faculty members by helping them identify resources, pull together a plan and set benchmarks for what a reasonable progress towards their goal is going to be, and then let them do the work. When people hit pain points, then then that comes to me, or sometimes like it might end up in your lap, Delmar, and we work through it, and then they keep going. But one of the things that we do then on the end is I help the student workers and we help run formatting. We do the accessibility checks. We look over the licensing. We have recommendations, and so the faculty, like each faculty member, is really able to do it on their own. We have a stipend structure set up, and so faculty are compensated for the work that they do. It's not something that they're just expected to take on their free time. And so that's helped in terms of it being seen as not or being seen as in addition to work, as opposed to them having to take away time from the other courses that they're already teaching. And so that's been extremely helpful. And Jill, do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, I think that it's helpful with that, is that just giving recognition of the hard work and the time dedication that it does take. And it just shows I think that stipend piece shows the importance that the college places on this as well. So
yeah. And LibreTexts does have a lot of good project management software built in,
yes.
Because we tend to be like fairly smaller groups. We've mostly not been using that. We've been doing peer-to-peer conversations. But especially for like that physical science for educators book, because we had so many people from so many different places, being able to benchmark out the projects so that people knew where in the process they were, being able to assign specific sections for the different subject matter experts that we were collaborating with was really helpful in keeping that backbone going that gets a project from start to finish. And because like every project just needs to have there needs to be a through line with with your points that you need to hit.
I mean, many of those things are the same issues of other programs. I'm just trying to figure out what the secret sauce was in you guys about why you were so successful.
I mean, I think some of it is because we've really Brandy, please.
Oh, I was gonna say, part of it is that we're a small faculty body, but we also, in addition to the stipends, which are really helpful in honoring the work and the time that we put into it, we had a summer institute, which was fabulous, that allowed all of us, the entire anybody who wanted to participate in our faculty, and we got a stipend for attending that as well. And we just spent the whole week together in the library, all of us. They locked us in. They wouldn't let us out. Just kidding.
It got a little grim.
But all of the discipline experts from all of the disciplines were there. And so if you had a question of somebody else that maybe could help you on a piece of the book that you were working on, we were all there to just help each other out. And people who had been doing it for a while were helping people who were just new to the process. And I think it really helped people see the value in it and get their projects going, and just to have that dedicated, what was like 6 hours a day for a week at the beginning of summer, to just really, okay, we can do this and here's how we can do it. And the support was there, and that was immensely helpful.
Yeah, I think the sense of community, just that and specific, like especially the Summer Institute, like getting everybody together into a room and people got to choose which projects they wanted to work on, but just the sense of not being stuck alone at home and facing the blank page did a lot of good for that. We're going to be running another one this year to help with courses that haven't been able to transition yet, with people who are still toying with the idea about whether they want to transition. And we're really pushing the creation of the ancillary materials here, so that for people who are going to have an easier time just adopting something, that that it's as easy to adopt as the paid textbooks, because that'll really help move us from, like, if we can get to 90% of full-time faculty, and then have full-time faculty build out the support for the adjuncts. Like, adjuncts are a lot, they have the same academic freedom, but when they get a last minute assignment, just being like, hey, here,
right. Yeah,
here you go.
I think that's, yeah.
And yeah. Carrie Ann has asked, how many textbooks are we creating each year? That is a good question. I think for creating, we did, the last academic year we did 7 that were novel. But then we probably had at least another 5 or so that were adaptations of existing works. And then some just pure adoption, and then lots of pure adoptions. I think we're right now 114 of our courses are OER, and I would say that probably 20% of those were created, or we were authoring a good portion of it. Rachel, do you have any thoughts? Rachel down here is our secret ringer. She used to be part of the program and got a tenure track offer down in Irvine.
Oh, thank you, Heather. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes,
I miss you guys so much, and
we
you guys
miss
are
you.
incredible. I agree with Brandy that the Summer Institute was an amazing way to really expedite the process. And to Karina's question, I think it was around 40 OER projects. Like if you were looking at whether it was an adoption, adaption, authoring from scratch, whether they were building out the course and just using an OpenStax book, I want to say we did about 40 to 45 OER projects in the last academic year. So depending on how you want to classify it though, are we talking about pure out authorship or are we talking about any OER project that led to an adoption? But I totally miss you all. And I just feel like a lot of it was due to the fact that Coalinga faculty were ready. They saw the need, they knew the impact it would have on their students, and they were willing to do it. I feel like even before y'all had the stipends, you were willing to do this work. And that just shows your level of dedication to your students. And that's really all I'll say. Thank you so much for asking, Heather. I miss y'all.
How much money did it cost in order to run that institute with stipends? And you can even give the bigger picture of how much it costs in order to get to the state of affairs that you have. Because you did this without the ZTC money, or did you have ZTC money?
We did part of it with ZTC money, but we also won a local grant, the Fresno Madera K through 16 collaborative. I gave about $500,000, and we that grant will be closing. We probably only spent about $200,000 of it specifically on this. There was an additional hire that we thought might come through, but the Summer Institute, I believe it was $2,500 was
Yes.
the stipend, and so then if we had approximately 20 instructors. Yeah,
Rachel
so
said it was about 100,000.
yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, it's not nothing, but it was but in terms of targeted strike, it really we went for when I think back, we had a couple of very early adopters who were very excited, and then people who were thinking about it and but weren't really quite sure, didn't know whether they would have the time, weren't sure when they would find the time. And then when the institute came, we were surprised by the number of people who signed up. It was the week right after finals, and so 100 to 125 stipends for faculty. It was about 25 faculty, but each stipend was $2,500, so
For the week,
2,500 for the week. And attendance for the week was mandatory. And so there was, if you needed to miss a day during the week, you got to make up the time later, which helped make sure that everybody was putting in the same amount of time to the projects. But the collegiality of it and the setting specifically the setting aside time, because I don't know exactly or how things are at the UCs. I know that there are different levels of demands for the different colleges, but the community colleges, we have a lot of governance responsibilities. We don't have a lot of administration. And so, and our teaching loads tend to be more like 5/5s. And so but finding where the time for these things to happen can be difficult. And so setting it aside at a time where people haven't really gotten anywhere else. Or right at the end, it made it easy for people to sign on and then feel like they had the space and had the social support and had the material support.
And I think it also made it much more realistic for them to do when they can come in, do it, get the support there, and then also learn kind of the tools. Once you kind of do it once, I feel like it's easier the second time around. It becomes much more manageable. Like, oh, okay, this is how you do it. When you're just kind of left in the abyss, like make this text, it can be kind of daunting. So I think having all the faculty there doing it at the same time really created a really nice way of a learning community. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, and Brandy was right. People also, like, it wasn't just attendance that was mandatory. Every stipend was tied to a deliverable at the end.
Yes.
Faculty got to choose what they were going to deliver within reason, but you weren't going to get the stipend unless you turned something in. And one of those was like turning in an OER text, creating a full module in Canvas built around an OER. And because once you get the structure of the first module done, then, you know, it's
Yes.
going to be, you can more or less just repeat down. And so it really set people up, even if they weren't, it gave people time who were going to do more, uh, extensive projects. It gave them time, set aside time, but for people who were just needed the support to make the jump from
Mhm.
one to the next, it really, it made sure that they had something they could work on, when they went home. There was something that was usable, to follow it up with. What other questions do we have?
So you said you're running this again. Basically,
Mhm.
the future is the next question. How are you going to take over the world?
One
One book at a
student,
time.
I would say one student at a time, but yeah,
Yes.
you know, mine's fine. The I mean, the next big push is going to, there are two major fronts for that. One of them is adjuncts, making sure that we have the relationships with the adjuncts, you know, like we're building some of the ground game for that, but pulling them in, making sure they're connected with the resources, and encouraging, and strongly encouraging adoption. You know, in some ways, enrollment sort of helps drive that. But the other thing is really reaching out into, our technical courses. We have a lot of local certificates for things that are not well represented in academia otherwise. We have a lot of agricultural, courses. We have a lot of child development courses. We have welding courses. We have HVAC courses. And some of these have had, don't have a ton of existing resources. And so we've been using LibreTexts as a way to help, start authoring those books, but really being able to get those local certificates in terms of making the difference for our community. Getting those local certificates all the way to ZTC, is our next big push. And, you know, and it's just, you know, one bite at a time. Yeah, and Rachel's calling out one, specifically one of our instructors, Rick, Valenzuela. He is authoring from scratch a heating, ventilation, and air conditioning textbook. He has been writing it, and I'm going to go help gather images for it so that we're going to put those in, and then, you know, it'll be freely available on LibreTexts hopefully by the summer. And it'll be the first of four. He's doing the whole series. Um, and so we're really proud of him. And we're
That's
really
awesome.
excited to, especially, he came from, he used to own an HVAC business, and so he's very much a subject matter expert. And I think once he feels comfortable with that process, because he's so used to training people, like that's really, that was a lot of what he did. He'll also be a huge support for helping train some of our other CT instructors on how
Mhm.
they can also start adapting. Like, you know, just the more that we can bring in the fold, the more messengers that we have. You know, Rachel was a very effective messenger for some of our faculty. I have been a very good messenger for other parts of our faculty. And the more messengers that we have going out, the more ways that we can have people, the more people that we can reach and recruit. Like, not everybody is good at hearing things from particular people. And I think Rick will be a very powerful advocate once he really has gotten his sea legs on it. And I expect that that'll be the case in a couple of months.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, Carrie Ann, and like they will be available. They'll be announced through the ASCCC. We'll have them on our Canvas Commons. Um, and yeah, and then we also, we have heavy equipment operating is the other one we're trying to do from scratch right now. uh, and child development administration. Those are the from scratch projects. So
There was another question. Were there other reasons you chose that platform over others? LibreText.
I really liked the granularity of the licensing. That was a big thing for me. The built-in accessibility checks have been really
Mhm.
nice. I have found I've enjoyed working with Delmar. I've loved working with Justin and Jennifer. You know, and just really that we all share the vision about what we want in terms of making sure that, like, education is a public good and our public needs access to it. And so
I also, from an instructor point of view, I think the forking, you know, and actually the usability of doing it once you're in there, is pretty simplistic, which I appreciated.
yeah, there's getting, or like, once you've used it twice, it's, you know, it all holds together. And the easier, again, it is for me to understand, for my faculty to understand, the easier it is for peer-to-peer support, peer-to-peer information flow. Oh, thank you, Jennifer. Do we any other questions that we have? Oh yeah, I just wanted to say the instructor who wasn't able to make it, she was talking about the accessibility of LibreTexts is one of the things. She was one of our first adopters, and she took to it like a duck to water. And I think she's on like her third or fourth book now. She's outpacing the curriculum committee, and so that's very exciting. She's got a plan, and she's gonna get it done, and I'm super happy to be along for the ride on that. But she also wanted to thank the LibreText team for how responsive everybody's been when there's you know, when we run into a thing.
You guys have auto mechanics. Is that in your campus?
It's not quite, or say more.
No, no, I
Okay.
don't think we do.
Okay. Because
Yeah,
you know,
no.
there's almost nothing there in the
Yeah.
OER community, and I was just wondering if that was going to be addressed, or you were helping to fill in that hole.
So so one of the ones we're doing is also heavy equipment operating. And there are dreams for tractor operations.
Yes.
And for and industrial mechanic technicians is also one of our courses that we're going to try and get going. I think that one there's another faculty who is she's looking at that, but it might be a little bit more of a oh, I'm going to mess up the acronym, the credit for prior learning uh style of course.
CVE.
Yeah. Or the CTE is the certificate technical.
The Council for Credit for Prior Learning, CPL.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, I mean, and that's also part of the really exciting part of Rick getting all the way through in terms of being like, he's just so brave. And you know, and just there's envisioning a project, and then there's the running it through the first time. And I think once we have that done the first time, it's going to, like, you know, the institutional knowledge is going to be there. You know, if I run into a thing with Sam, we know that we'll be able to go check in with Rick and be like, hey, did you see this problem before? You know, how did you handle it? And you know, and the more that we know, the more that we can share.
Are your students using the books predominantly electronically, or are any of them pursuing the physical copies that we provide, or that you have the option of getting?
We most access is electronic. Faculty really like the being able to import it directly into Canvas. That's been really helpful. I worked with a couple of faculty who were sort of dreading the, oh God, I'm going to have to copy paste, and I was like, no, welcome to the future, my friend.
I should mention that the LMS integration is a key component.
Yeah, well, and it helps that that it's live too, and so
Yes.
and that's been really helpful. We have ordered physical copies for books for predominantly for the library, so that we have for students who don't have the technical access all of the time for students who have special needs or, just prefer paper. We have those available for them. And so we're trying to keep access going in as many ways as possible.
I maybe mention this later on this week, but we are expanding the libraries or expanding the book capabilities in order to have an audiobook export.
That would be
so that
amazing.
Oh,
so
yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's but I don't know if I haven't gotten the thumbs up that I'll be able to talk about it on Monday or it's going to be the next week. So you'll be able to click a button and get the MP3 or get the entire MP3 for the whole chapter or for the entire book.
Oh,
That
I
would
love
be
and
that.
then run with that.
that would be amazing.
Using machine translation, but we checked it out. It's actually pretty good these days.
Mhm.
And in order to do that, we needed to be able to set it up so that the alt text were set up. So we're presenting our co-author tools that will go through your book and put in alt text for any image that you don't have alt text for, using
Ooh.
AI to do that. It's part of
Okay.
our desire to bring the standard up of OER on our platform to be as comparable as possible to commercial platforms, since 80% of books have mediocre to non-existing alt text.
Yeah.
So you'll hear more about that in the near future, but certainly on Friday, if you come to our first Friday's feature, which I believe is
Okay.
at 11 o'clock this time, I'll be discussing that. It also will do meta tagging, so you can actually create your index automatically, and
Mm.
you'll have summaries for the page. But I'm particularly, we got a lot of requests recently for audiobooks, and I was a little perplexed about who is asking for that and why people are asking for that. So hence why I was
Yeah.
asking that.
And I mean, definitely for accessibility, and so sometimes it's going to be for vision, but honestly, like I just drive a lot. My commute is 70-ish minutes. And so I just put in audiobooks. And it's not that I don't like physical books, but it just helps it fit into my schedule. Being able to like listen to a book while I'm gardening outside, or I have to be washing dishes, or, like there's so much else you can be doing if you're doing the audio. Sometimes it helps to have both the audio and the visual happening at the same time. And that's been one of the things that we've been been low-key concerned about. And so I am very, very excited about the idea that there would be MP3 versions for this.
Yeah, also my English language learners,
Oh yeah.
that would be really helpful for my students.
Yeah. And Brandy, you have your hand up?
Well, I was just going to say, for example, last semester I had a student that was going blind. And so if we had an audiobook, that would have been immensely helpful for her.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, it will be available soon. We're not going to be able to roll it out on every book because it costs money in order to do so.
Yeah.
But it's like the cost of a physical book would be the cost of making an EPUB or making one, and then everyone can benefit from it. We just can't do it for all 3,000 books without a sizable.
What?
Well, you need a sizable amount of investment. But you can come in, you can say, I want British English, or I want a male voice that sounds sexy or something like that, and then you can hear that out. So
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, that's wonderful.
That's awesome.
Justin.
Yeah, I don't think I qualify for that for some reason or another.
Oh. Yeah. How else can we help? What other questions?
Jennifer, do you have anything?
I feel like I talk to Heather all the time. mostly for book orders. So I don't, and Rachel, I bug both of them constantly.
I would love to see more about if you have documentation on how you run your summer institutes.
Okay.
It sounds quite interesting to us. And, we just started to introduce our professional development arm, our academy. and this sounds like it might be something that could be connected. I mean, not necessarily the kidnapping and locking people into the room, but if it's productive in that way, that could be useful. And I do this with the student harvesters at times, that I would bring them into a room and say, here is a big pile of pizza. You have to do this work during that period of time. Yeah, and it can be quite productive. I understand.
Yeah, let me check with where the person who the documentation lives with, and make sure that we have clearance to share, or what might need redacting. But sharing is caring, so
that it is.
Yeah, no, the more that we can get this done, because like specifically, I'm just thinking about like our child development courses. So we got a stipend to write 5 books from scratch for the child development. And there are still going to be another 6 courses that do not have ZTC options after we complete the ones that we're plugging away. We got one of them done. We're working on the next one. But it's going to be if I can give the institution, like share the summer institute, and we get another campus that's able to take on those 5 books while, I support a different program, that's everybody helping everybody.
Sounds great. I mean, there's always the question, you brought up accessibility, sorry, you brought up ancillary materials, but I don't think you used the word homework in the whole lecture here. And obviously, we have our homework infrastructure behind that. Have you guys started to think along those lines, or is that still something in the future?
So ADAPT is going to be one of the topics for our summer institute this year. Like primarily, we've been focusing on videos. We've been focusing on knowledge checks. A lot of stuff that's more like that's
discussion.
been built into Canvas, as opposed to and we are lucky in that we have the funding for the institution to eat a lot of the homework costs that might be passed on for homework systems. And so there hasn't been pressure to get courses to ZTC through, because the homework system has been the holdup. But moving people over into that anyway, our administration would thank us.
Absolutely.
Sounds great. Well, we're here for you.
Yeah, no, well, I might have to pigeonhole one or all of you, so don't worry about it. You'll get an email.
Lucky us. Okay. I know Jennifer introduced you, but I can unintroduce you. I'm not sure what the proper term for that. So
close this out.
Close you out. Thank you very much for a very engaging conversation. You guys seem to be quite exciting. It makes me even want to move further south in the Central Valley from where we're at. Almost. So thank you again for showing with us what you guys have been doing. Like I said, it's always exciting in order to see where you're going, and what you've done is impressive. And I look forward to the time where you can say you're at 100%, because you are the ones that are most likely to do that, because both of your organization, your administrative buy-in, and the fact that you're able to be so nimble in doing so, because you don't have quite the same size constraints that other campuses have. So I think that's going to be an exciting day.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.